Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 651 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with Wyatt Everhart. He's a Coast Guard veteran and part of Vetpreneur Month here on Screw the Commute. Every September, we honor our veterans that are entrepreneurs, but really we're honoring all our veterans because we really want to let them know that their service is really appreciated by us so that we can do what we do relatively safely. So thanks so much to all our veterans out there. Now, Wyatt's an Emmy award-winning meteorologist, and now he's chosen to kick out on the bright side of the weather. We'll tell you what that means in a minute. All right, hope you didn't miss episode 650. That's Anthony Ciotti. He's 32 years, still active duty, but he's got a side hustle. He owns Tactics to Toys, LLC. It's an e-commerce store specialized in collectible toys and strategy games that help with PTSD. Very interesting interview with him. Make sure if you want to get to a back episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number. Anthony was 650 and Wyatt is 651. All right, make sure you grab a copy of our automation ebook. Oh my goodness, this has saved me. We actually estimated nearly 8 million keystrokes over the years and thousands of hours of fighting with my computer. We want you working with your customers and prospects and developing products and services and not fighting with your computer. So grab a copy of that at screwthecommute.com/automate free. While you're at it, pick up a copy of our podcast app at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. You can put us on your cell phone and tablet and take us with you on the road. All right, let's get to the main event. Wyatt Everhart is a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. He completed his service, after completing his service and attending college on the GI Bill, he went to work in the field of broadcast meteorology. He completed a 20-year television career with his role as chief meteorologist for ABC2 News in Baltimore. And then he decided it was time to shift his focus, and this is his quote, to the sunny days only by breaking into the solar industry. And today his focus is on helping homeowners and businesses who are looking for a smarter way to invest their energy dollars by harnessing the power of the sun without getting burned. Wyatt, are you ready to screw the commute?
It's just a little bit of a loaded question there, Tom, but I guess as ready as I ever will be.
You know, before I knew that you were the chief meteorologist, ABC2, and I knew you were into meteorology, I said, that guy looks like one of those guys that's on TV all the time. 20 years worth, I guess so. But how did you fit all this stuff in? How many years did you put in the Coast Guard?
Oh man, it's going back a little bit, Tom, at this point. But you think back to the 90s, and we were doing a lot of patrols off of Florida, really between Cuba and Haiti and the Dominican Republic. There was just a lot of immigration, trying to come across, and it was our job to kind of stand between us and Florida. So, for 4 years, it went by quick.
Well, did you run into Don Johnson down there with Miami Vice? And
it's funny you say that because growing up as a kid, you watch when I did, you watch Miami Vice and you see the Coast Guard and the high speed chases, and that is what kind of motivated me. My dad and granddad were Army, so I broke the mold. But I grew up watching Miami Vice, right? So.
Well, how many cigarette boats did you catch?
Oh man, it was funny. It's a bit of a shell game down there, at least back then. I mean, it was a lot of that stuff, drugs, everything that was coming in. Freighters, hidden compartments, the speedboat thing, I think was part of it. But I was on more the bigger cutters. So we weren't chasing speedboats. We were more like interdicting the big boys.
Did you have to shoot across anybody's bow?
I never did, but that did happen. That did happen out there in the Caribbean. That's for sure. Yeah, they wouldn't stop, so you just took the engine out.
Wow. Before we get into the solar business you're in, I'm really interested in the meteorologist stuff, because we see all these blooper reels and I was just watching some more today, and how this one guy's dog kept coming in, his kid kept running into the shot. They put weird things on the screen behind him that weren't supposed to be there. One guy, all the temperatures added like 1,000 degrees. It's going to be really hot in Tempe today. It'll be 1,700 degrees.
Well, yeah,
This was
it's
live TV, right? For you did it
yeah.
for 20 or how many years? 10?
Well, it was right at 20 years when I
Yeah.
when I finished up my kind of second contract as a chief in Baltimore. But I tell you, through those years, I mean, you typically start doing the weekend shift, and then you go to morning shift, and there's all kinds of crazy hours. But the weather guys out there, the meteorologists on air, it's not as easy as it may look. Most of us are building all our own graphics, and I tell you, you put one extra digit, and you're right. You just forecasted, 900 degrees instead of 90.
Right.
So
Yeah, this guy just went with it. He says, I'm not your dad, but you better leave because it's going to be 2,300 degrees.
you better get out of there quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So any crazy stuff happen with you? I'm sure it did, but anything stick out?
There was so many things, and some of it, of course, would be accidental, and some of it would be, by design. The crew would prank you. I mean, I can
Oh,
remember the green wall, right? Well,
yeah.
I think you're a big tennis guy. Racquetball. Some of the racquetballs are green.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one classic trick is they throw one of those at you, and you duck, but nobody at home really saw why'd he duck. So that was a classic. And coming up on Halloween, there was one time they just right in the middle of like a 3-minute weather hit, they just lowered this kind of ghost scarecrow thing behind me from above, and make you jump. So all kinds of things on live TV, man.
Oh man, yeah, that sounds like a blast. But it is all hours, are you like one of the guys they shove out on the beach when the hurricane's coming and your wind's blowing you on the ground?
I did my fair share of that. As you go up the ranks and later in the career, you tend to be more the guy in the studio tossing to the newer guy out in the
Oh,
rain and the driving sleet and everything. But I did my share. The funniest thing that would happen though is the storm would be pretty bad, and they're like, "All right,
mhm.
we're going to come to you live, stand by." And I'm telling you, it was like two times out of three, right when they came to you, man, the wind would die down. It wouldn't look that bad. You say, well, you should have seen it 2 minutes ago. But yeah, there's a lot of timing with that kind of thing.
I heard you say on one show, 2-degree guarantee. What does that mean? You guarantee that
Uh,
you're accurate to 2 degrees? I mean, what's
yeah.
how do you return that for a refund? I mean,
That's a good yeah, well, there's a lot of different, obviously, marketing and local
mhm.
news, and then local weather is part of that, and, I had a few stations. I mean, if you were Channel 3, it
Yeah.
was easier because I had one time in my career, I was the 3-degree guarantee. So, so if you said it's gonna be 90, it had to be somewhere between, what, 87 and 93. So, I think what we did is we gave the viewers, like a drawing. They got some type of tchotchke from the station for every time I missed. So
Oh, okay.
you didn't want to
Okay.
miss too often.
Yeah, so it's an interactive thing. That's cool. But I
Yeah.
did see now, I don't know if this was as your role of meteorologist because you also did a midday show, but I saw you interviewing a husky was howling at you, and I saw you eating a grasshopper. I don't know, is that part of your contract or
Oh man, I should have built them extra for the munching on a grasshopper. We had it was funny. The midday shows and the morning shows. A lot of times, the weather guy, you're going to kind of come in and do some of the fun segments. And I just remember that one. I think they were called the Pestaurant people or
Right,
something, and they
right,
had all
right.
these freeze dried buggies, new proteins to try. Hey, I'll try anything 10 or 15 times.
Right.
But yeah, so fun stuff could come up like that. But
Yeah, I saw
yeah,
you
just
doing
lots of
a water rowing machine, and all kinds of interesting stuff. And I only was able to watch for 15 minutes or so. So I imagine after 20 years, you got into a lot of stuff. So
yeah.
when you decide, I mean, did you basically get kicked out, or did you decide and they finally sick of you, or what happened
Uh,
when you decided to go into the solar industry?
well, I think a combination things happened, Tom. I mean, I always started out in my broadcast career. I was from the Maryland beaches, and I said, what would it be the end game? And I was like, well, if I could ever be a chief back in one of the DC, Baltimore big stations, that would be the ultimate. Well, I was able to pull that off,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did a couple of contracts, and you're working these kind of crazy night hours, and you're looking at getting married, and it just, there was a variety of reasons. I think that it just made sense to kind of, well, what's going to be my new something new to target, something that I can kind of do a little bit more on my own terms, so.
Now, did you plan this for a long time as a transition before you quit the TV, or did you say, I'm sick of this, I'm out of here?
Yeah, it kind of starts to get in the back of your mind, because what the way the broadcast works for most stations, on air people that you see, they're going to generally be in a 2 or 3 year contract. And so what happens is you start getting near the end, and you kind of think, geez, is the station going to offer me a big raise? Maybe, maybe not. Or am I kind of, do I want to try to do something else? So for me, it just kind of came up. I was at the end of a term, and I just said, you know what? I had an opportunity, actually. I had met one of the CEOs of one of the local solar companies around the DC area, and interviewed him actually on the midday show. And I kind of stayed in touch with him, and then it kind of got to the end, and I said, "Hey, would would you guys ever look at a weather guy?" I was like, so that's kind of how it happened pretty quick, actually, but it was kind of in the back of my mind. Yeah.
Well, that does seem like a good idea for a solar company, having a guy with weather credentials and stuff. So now I think the station did really want to keep you because, from what I understand, they sent you to interview the bachelorettes. I don't know if that's a heat related thing or what.
Well, so it's funny, Tom, that whatever the local affiliate you're at, so I was at an ABC,
Hmm.
they tend to piggyback some of the most successful shows locally, right? So that was obviously The Bachelor, Bachelorette's been a big hit for
Hmm.
ABC for, gosh, I don't know how many seasons now. And so they would start to do local casting calls. And so who are they going to send out there? Well, I was the weather guy, and at the time I was still a single guy, so they thought that was a good fit. So it was pretty fun to interview some of those some of the gals trying to get on the show.
Did you actually interview the Bachelor?
No, I don't think I ever got the one who kind of won the show, but the I
No, I
believe her.
mean the actual guy.
Oh, you're the guy who was gonna
Yeah,
field all these
right,
lovely
right.
ladies. No, but I gotta
Yeah,
say
who cares?
they were they had a good they had a good setup. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Tell us about the solar industry. And I want to get into some things that could actually help. I mean, if business, if people want to get into the solar business, or if they are thinking about buying solar for their home or business, I know there's a lot of scams out there. So, what are some of the things people have to watch for when solar people come after them? Because we see it on online and on TV all the time. Get free solar panels. Don't buy anything until you talk to us. So, what are some of the things that can go wrong there?
Well, there's a lot, right? I mean, I always say it's a little bit analogous to, making a financial investment decision. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of scams out there with, different financial instruments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
everything from, I guess, a reverse mortgage to a bad stock or what have you. So you kind of buyer beware, right? So I think it's the same mindset with solar. You can get a very high returning, good system, especially if your home is well set up for it. But on the other hand, I've seen some very questionable contracts and agreements out there that I've run into. So very much buyer beware. It's funny you say that segue from the news. I mean, I remember seeing a story over the winter last year where they were, it's one of my old stations up in Michigan. They were, had these some kind of sketchy solar actors up that way that were kind of pointing panels north, and they were like in tree shade and covered with snow, and it just didn't make any sense. But yet some of these people had signed up, 20-year loans and stuff. Um, it's certainly something that you want to make sure you have a good advisor, a good company. Just similar to being a cautious consumer in other areas too.
Now that's something, even if they're not in your service area, they can have you look over contracts and make suggestions and things like that too, right?
Absolutely, Tom. I mean, we talked a little bit about this before the show, but whereas the last almost 5 years now, I've really focused on signing up a lot of homeowners
Hmm.
and small businesses for solar in the DC region, surrounding states. And then really the pandemic allowed us to start to do a lot more even further away, by Zoom and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But what I'm looking to do more and more into the future here, I think, is just kind of consult with people who maybe could be in any of the 50 states, but they're just kind of trying to make sure maybe they've got it down to two or three proposals. You want to make sure everything looks well. I mean, I kind of see myself as a solar guardian, if you will, in that way, maybe for people out there that are looking at solar, especially now with the new tax credits they just passed. It's really going to be a pretty high payback in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and so it's nice to have a third uninterested party looking over your stuff because they don't have any, they can point out things that might slide by if it was somebody that's trying to get a commission off of the sale. So that's a great potential service. But the one I kind of saw online, they were talking about, okay, you can get all this stuff for free. The installation free, all the equipment free, but it's like a lease thing.
Hmm.
And the problems associated with it is there's a lease payment forever. You don't own the equipment, and it might make it almost impossible for you to sell your house. So tell us about that leasing stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think a lot of people, depending where they're watching from, I know certainly in the kind of Maryland, Virginia, DC region, but I think really in almost all the states now, you're going to see these ads that might say, get solar for zero. It is clever marketing. I mean, it's what you have to think of is what typically a solar company might offer you is one of two things. It could be a zero down financed purchase. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these solar systems could be, 30, 40, 50 grand sometimes, but they might offer you don't pay anything until you're installed. And, you start paying a payment against your electric bill savings after you're installed. That's not really zero. It's zero down. There's
Mm-hmm.
a little
Right.
big difference there. The other program you talked about, yeah, I mean, there is not in every state. Okay. Some states do not allow these, but check in your state if there's a solar leasing program or PPA, power purchase agreement program. A lot of times that's not going to make sense. I mean, they don't generally go forever. At least I haven't seen that, but like 25 years, not uncommon at all. So you obviously that's something you want to take an even harder look at than just sort of a straight purchase of the home improvement. I mean, a lease is there's going to be a lot more. I think those contracts can be 30, 40 pages. So you definitely want to go through that or have me do it or someone that knows solar well.
Well, right, and the thing that jumped out at me is that the new prospective purchaser may not want to take over the lease payment. Then what happens? So it could be very, very sticky, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say on it is if it's a well done and generally not even a lease anymore, that most of those are have gone away, thankfully, I believe. But a PPA is analogous to a lease. You're agreeing to buy the PPA, power purchase agreement. A lot of times those are going to be 20, 25 years. If you sold the home in 5 or 10 years, I mean, just one tidbit, you really want to make sure that you review that part of that agreement. Does it guarantee the transfer to the next homeowner? Is it going to be a big headache? Is there a friendly buyout option where you or the buyer could simply buy the system out and just have the home go with it, as an owned system? There's little things that can make a big difference when you go to sell, right? So very important.
Exactly, yeah, and then the being sucked in with no money down can really hurt you. Now, another thing that I wondered about is overrated panels. It seems like every panel on Earth is is rated at a certain thing that only if you're in a spaceship holding the panel directly in front of the sun they get that amount. So how can you really check out the quality of panels?
That's a great
How long are they
question.
going to last, and how the rating, how reasonable the rating is?
Well, it's so there's two things there, right? So obviously you want to make sure you're getting a quality panel. A lot of times we talk about those as tier one panels, tier one being it's from a vetted manufacturer. Bloomberg has looked at them and said they're financially stable, large solar panel company. The U.S. made panels are very available now for those that want to buy American made. That's what I did with my house. Um, so a good 25 linear performance warranty. You always want to see that on a panel.
What is that
Um,
now? What's that?
so a panel should come. People say, well, geez, if I put them up, it might look great the first year or two, but what about 5, 10 years from now? Are they going to be like my garden lights and not produce anything and just go out? That would be terrible. That means you really lost your return on investment. So a good manufactured panel is going to have that 25-year performance warranty. And generally, it's going to say, hey, these panels cannot lose less than 0.5% per year. So that means, 10 years later, there's still 95% of day one performance. You want to make sure you have that warranty on the panel.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the output of them, but you just, I think, alluded to the look of them also. I mean, do they look
Yeah.
terrible?
Well, the other thing I would say is generally the industry's gotten away from those kind of or better companies have gotten away from those kind of grid lines and tic-tac-toe stuff. You can get just like a nice jet black panel now. Looks nice on a aesthetically. And then the last piece, Tom, you talked about, hey man, are these really going to give me enough power? People could promise me the moon or the sun, as is in this case. Um, look, at the end of the day, that's another one of those solar pitfalls I try to warn people about is any company could come in and say, oh, you need, this massive amount of power per year. If you have a large home, such as you, Tom, I think you have a bigger house probably. You're probably going to need a lot more than 15 or 20 panels, but if they try to tell you that, just a very small system can get you all your power. Okay, what's the production guarantee? How much power are you really saying I'm going to get with this system? I mean, it's important to figure that out.
Okay, and how do you know if your house is really makes sense for solar? I mean, you mentioned trees and the angle of the house and the roof. How do you know if your house is good for solar?
That's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, we generally, good advisor, analyst will kind of put your house in the software and draw in the tree heights and really be able to dial in what can be done at your specific house. But just painting with a broad brush, if you're a homeowner out there listening and you said, I always kind of had solar in the back of my mind, but I wonder if my house possibly would even be a good fit. A couple quick things. If we have large trees, mainly on the south side of the house here in the north hemisphere, obviously we want the sun, we want the equator to be wide open if we can. So large trees on the south side of your house, probably not going to work out well for you. But if we can point them east or west and that's open, that may be an option. But generally here in the northern hemisphere, we want to point the panels south, southeast, southwest. So we want to make sure there's not big trees in that direction.
Now, is this too much Rube Goldberg, or can panels move during different times of the year and times of day?
You're talking about like trackable.
Yeah.
We don't see much of that in residential, that's for sure. I mean, the bang for the buck is really just kind of a nice flush mounted, clean looking installation on the roof, unshaded as possible. A little bit of shade is okay. The new inverters can handle that, but not heavily shaded. Some areas you can find a good company to do like our company does the ground arrays. But even on a ground array, Tom, you actually generally want to just have no moving parts. That's the big knock on wind in some cases, right? The mechanics can fail. So generally, the part of the magic of solar being high returning is it's in a sense very basic. I mean, there's no moving parts. We're talking silicon, aluminum, copper put together in a specific way. And if it's well installed and well angled and unshaded, you're going to get a lot of power out of it.
Now, are these panels a standard size physically?
They vary a little bit manufacturer to manufacturer. The big thing I would tell people out there is listening is, hey, 3.5 by 5.5 feet would be a good average if you want to kind of do the math and measure your roof if you're handy, kind of see how many panels might be able to fit. And then there's a bigger panel that goes generally on like, industrial projects or building roofs, that kind of thing. They're a little bigger.
Yeah, and I've driven through Virginia, and there's some like fields that are 50 acres worth of panels. Unbelievable. I don't know who they belong to. It must be a pretty big house.
Yeah, that one is probably that one, unless it's a mansion or something, that's probably like a utility scale.
Mm,
Sometimes these utilities, the states are kind of mandating, hey, we want you to buy a certain amount of renewable energy. So they'll actually, it can work out well for landowners. They have some land that doesn't really have many other great uses, and they'll lease them out, the land, that is, they'll lease the
mm-hmm.
land to a solar producing company. But those are large projects. And I always say, big picture, Tom, I mean, you think about it when you fly in, you probably fly into Norfolk fairly often. You look down, you'll see solar here and there, but it's not really, there's a lot of open roof space. So my thought is always, hey, with all the open roof space we have, and really the panel should extend the life of your roof. It kind of puts the roof in the shade. Why I personally, I say, don't use the land first. Let's use the open roofs first.
Well, pretty much, does it, if your roof is on its last legs, it's not a good idea to put solar on it and then have to take it off to redo the roof, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. I said the most common time people look at, and really should probably look at, solar right before or right after you're replacing your roof, because
Mm-hmm.
your roof is usually going to have like a 30-year warranty, and your solar system should have a 25 to 30-year warranty. So that's going to match up very nice. But
Got
yeah,
it.
there's no reason you don't want to put the panels up and 3 years later be calling, hey, you guys need to come pull my panels. I got to put a new roof on it.
Right.
It just wouldn't make sense.
Now, what about the people that are telling you, oh, yeah, you can make money selling power back to the power company? Is that real? Is that pie in the sky? What is that?
Uh, Generally, what we say is, if you're fortunate enough that you've got a fairly large roof, or maybe a fairly small power demand, maybe you have natural gas in the house, so that minimizes how much electric you need in the winter. You want to go to 100%. I can show you a great return on investment up to about 100% of your power bill. When people start saying, hey, I notice I still got room for 10 more panels, should I add them, just and maybe sell that back to the power company? It changes the math a little bit. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the power company will give you like a wholesale credit, but most states, I don't think it makes sense to go much beyond 100% of your bill. Get your bill down to zero and
And
call it
be
a day.
happy with it, huh?
Yeah.
Now, you working on a book on this?
Developing it, yeah. It probably starts with more of a special report,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got a lot of content, that's for sure, and I'm working on it. Really, actually, I'll be honest, Tom, just for having met you and kind of reading some of your work, it's inspired me to move in that direction for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to get the word out on it because people have all these questions and they're very susceptible to the shysters. So you're giving them the real scoop. Well, a lot of people will appreciate it, and of course they'll want to do business with you for sure. We got to take a brief sponsor break. When we come back, we'll ask Wyatt what a typical day looks like for him in the solar business, and I don't know what happens when it rains. Does he does he take a day off or what?
Watch those panels.
So, folks, about 13 years ago or so, I was already selling online for 15 years at that point. And I thought, you know what, we're getting surrounded by scammers, solar scammers and everybody else and you're just kind of getting buried in the noise. I thought, I'm going to do something to set myself apart. So I went on a journey, a 3-year journey to get the only licensed, dedicated internet and digital marketing school in the country, probably the world. 3 years of background checks and curriculum checks and every other kind of check they can do on you before I got the license, because prior to this, a lot of for-profit schools were getting a lousy education to people and charging them a fortune and getting rich, and then the kids got nothing. So, and it's adults too are taking these classes. So started the school, teach the internet and digital marketing, and 13 years later, it's still going strong, and we give big scholarships to military, law enforcement, first responders, and nurses, and their immediate families. So we really pro military here, and we love the people that help make us safe and take care of us. So that's at imtcva.org. and put slash military if you happen to be military, and you can see all the people we've helped in the service and the deal that we have for military folks. Bigger than that, we have a big program going to help persons with disabilities. So we're just starting a Patreon for that, and we have a GoFundMe account that's helping people. We have 2 people in the program that are blind, and another person has got mobility problems, and they are making great progress. One has already started his own business online to help other people with disabilities. The other lady is totally blind, and she got a job in the digital industry and is helping her husband's construction website. Really inspiring people. So check it all out at imtcva.org/disability. And then if you're military, put /military. All right, let's get back to the main event. We've got Wyatt Everhart here. He is a Emmy Award-winning meteorologist. He has eaten grasshoppers, and, and he's.
I didn't get the Emmy for that, but yeah.
No, he's entered. He a quote of his. He probably doesn't remember this. He says, "If you see Charlie Manson on the road, make a U-turn." Do you even remember that saying that?
I have no idea when that would come
so
up,
what
but I
happened
don't
was,
deny it.
what happened was there was a lady doing some kind of news report, and instead of whatever she was talking about, the Charles Manson came on the screen behind her while she was doing, and you commented on her. So
I think I remember that now,
yeah.
yeah. And I still stand by that advice,
Yes,
Tom.
right. That is good advice. So tell us about what's the daily schedule look like for you? Do you get up early? Do you meditate? Do you have a morning routine? What's your story? What do you eat?
Well, it's interesting because it was, I was always by default more of a night owl. So back in the day, I
Mm-hmm.
was doing those morning shows, and you're getting up at 2 and going in
Oh,
at 3 to go on the air at 4. That was torture for
oh
me.
my
But
goodness.
but more of a night out by default. But Tom, what's interesting is I got married a little bit later in life, and had a child year and a half ago now, the
Oh.
toddler, and Connor. He changes your schedule. You're going to go on a different schedule once you have a young one running around the
Mm-hmm.
house. So more of a morning guy now. Probably up and at 'em. Usually at latest like 7:30. That's not crazy early, but by my old standards it
Yeah.
is. And then yeah, usually just kind of pretty quickly get the dog squared away, get him squared away if the missus isn't in, and just start, like you kind of that digital check, catch up some emails. And usually I kind of plan out my day because there's going to be more often than not at least 1 or 2 solar consultations, a lot of times with someone in the region here. So it takes, it can take, just so people know, if you book a solar appointment wherever you are, and you probably want to anticipate, I would tell you, an hour and a half to really
Mm-hmm.
go through it, really see what makes sense. And if they're trying to come in and give you a 20 or 30 minute, it's something's not right.
So is this
Because
this in,
normally it takes about an hour at least.
all right,
So
but if it's Zoom, do you already have pictures of their home and things like that, or
absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of satellite resources now, and
mm-hmm.
when you're with a solar company, you get even additional ones that you don't find. The Googles and the Bings of the world are helpful, but and Google Sunroof is one that's been out there. A lot of people look at on their own, and that can give you an idea of your rough solar access on your plot. But there's a lot that I can do with my software. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay. So you do some consultations. Then what?
Yeah, typically it's going to be finish try to get done early in the day with the consults if I can. Sometimes I'll have one in the evening, and that's fine. Try to get a workout in. I mean, I'm a big believer. This is one thing I have kept with me from the military. Unlike you, I wasn't a huge high school athlete. I mean, I played some sports, but I wasn't what you'd call a jock back then, but the military made me one. So ever since
Mm-hmm.
then, I just believe in that, try to get that, at least 45 minutes to an hour, at least, 4 or 5 days a week. So I'll get that in the afternoon, and then try to, wind down toward dinner time with the missus and the little one.
Hey, was there pressure, like probably not on you because you're a pretty buff guy, but to keep their weight down for all the anchors and the people on air to look good?
I don't know, Tom. I mean, I think I will say this. it seems like I think of like Al Roker, great guy.
Hmm.
I don't know him personally, but he lost a lot of weight, and more power to him. I'm sure it's probably very good for his long-term health, obviously. But it just seemed like for the longest time he was that kind of jovial big
Yeah,
guy on air, and he
right.
made a good run with that. So I think it's all case by case.
Yeah, but
what the
he's
station's
kind of
going
a
to try to
special
tell you
case.
to.
I'm thinking of
Yeah.
some of these ladies that
Mhm.
in the heels and the dresses and stuff. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if they get
People
any extra
critique,
pressure.
the truth of the matter is that the ladies on air certainly get critiqued harder. I mean, it's
Hmm.
everyone thinks they're an expert, it seems like, on what people should look like on air. But as the guy, they might say something about that was a crazy tie you had on, but you
Right.
don't get the makeup thing or that kind of stuff.
Uh,
So.
so how do people get a hold of you?
Well, thanks for asking, Tom. I mean, you can find me very easily with a Google on my LinkedIn, Wyatt Everhart, or I also have my website, allweatherpro.com.
All right,
You can
let's
reach me
wait.
there.
Slow down. You're not on air,
Yeah.
buddy.
Oh, sorry.
You don't have a stage manager counting you down. We want to spell it out for him. That
Oh,
Wyatt is Wyatt, Everhart, Everhart.
yes.
All right, and then allweatherpro.com is where they can find the solar stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah, and my contact info is there as
Hmm.
well, and
And
you can
you're
get
on all the
just a little
social
bit of
media,
info.
and your name's pretty unique. So you're on LinkedIn, and I saw some interesting stuff on Instagram for you too. So,
Yeah, it's what it was. It's interesting. You know, when you're in broadcast, they demanded that you're on everything and posting a ton. And I got to be honest, since I got out of television, I don't post nearly as much, but I still do. And you can still find me there for sure on the main ones.
now, when you were full time on air, were you still able to do other things like speaking engagements? It seems like you'd be, known everywhere that people would want you to come speak. And can you collect for it, or did you have to do it on behalf of the station?
No, when you do I did do quite a few, everything from the Rotaries to a lot of schools, a lot of school
Hmm.
presentations, and I enjoyed those. Like, I mean, it's fun to talk to kids about weather and tornadoes and try to keep them engaged. I always said if you can keep the first and second graders engaged, you could
Yeah.
you can do anybody. But yeah, so that was more just part of the job, at that time.
So
So
you couldn't collect. Is that
yeah, I think it would have been a conflict.
conflict?
Basically, when you're in broadcast, the station basically owns the rights to basically everything you do.
I see. I see.
So
Got it. Got it. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. Very interesting and informative. It's going to save people a lot of potentially getting robbed on solar. And then if they really want solar, what service area do you have now?
well, if someone that just happens to be listening from anywhere, basically we're centered in the DC area. So we do like New Jersey south to like Virginia, and we just entered North Carolina. But we're really that mid-Atlantic company. If I could get them signed up for a project with us in those states,
Hmm.
Central East Coast. But if they're outside that area, I'd still be happy to just talk to anybody or take a look at a contract just to make sure they're on the right track. Because I got to tell you, Tom, the people that I have installed from 4 and 5 years ago that did it the right way are just ecstatic. I mean, they send me pictures of like their $8 utility bills
Oh,
and
beautiful. Yeah.
refer their friends, and it can really work out well. Again, if it's done right, right. So just like anything else, buyer beware. But
Beautiful.
last thing, Tom, I just want to
Yeah.
say
Mhm.
thanks for everything you do. I guess this is like an all September thing for you for the vets because as we just these guys really I feel like what I did was pretty minor to compare to what guys have done since 9/11. So it's awesome that you kind of give back to those guys.
Well, yeah, we are very pro military here, and thank everybody. And I mean, Coast Guard is just I don't know if the services razz each other quite a bit, but I'm sure a Marine wouldn't want people pouring into Miami with drugs and guns and everything else that they did.
Oh
So
yeah, we got along pretty well
yeah.
with the Marines. It was the Navy we had a little bit of, they were like, oh, shallow water sailors, but we we would joke with those guys, hey, somebody's got to keep keep the home front company. So it's just friendly service
Yeah,
rivalries, right?
yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on, man.
You got it, Tom. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're part of Vetrepreneur Month here on Screw the Commute podcast. Make sure you support our veterans. Listen to the back episodes. We got several more episodes to come. and do anything you can to support our veterans because they have sacrificed quite a bit for us. All right, we'll catch you on the next episode. See you later.